Hello everybody, it's Mel. Thank you for joining me today for my top 10 favourite fantasy books of all time. So this is the second video in a series that I have started on my channel. I did intend for this to be a little bit more frequent than it has turned out to be. I did the first one, which was fantasy series, last year, about 6 months ago. I will put the video in the description so you can go and check that out if you would like to. This is the second video. Like I said, I am going to be doing a series of videos where I talk about my top 10 favorite books in a particular category or genre. As you can imagine, the books that are going to be, or series that are going to be listed in a top 10 of all time are going to fluctuate depending on what I've read since the last time I would have updated the list. So yeah, it's kind of as it stands as of today. So yes, fantasy standalones. They're a little bit hard to come by. Even when you think you have found one, they do tend to then become a series, I've noticed recently. So for example, in my top 10 fantasy series, I did talk about the Roots of Chaos series, which is the priory of the Orange Tree series, and I would have, a few years ago, said that was a top favourite standalone fantasy, but of course it got created into a series. So I may end up having to make a top 10. I don't know how I'm going to work that out, but anyway, that's not the point. Today we're going to be talking about my top 10 favourite fantasy standalones. So I'm going to do this in order from 10 up until 1. Some of these might surprise you a little bit, but as I said, it is because even when a fantasy in particular seems to be the genre where even when it is apparently a standalone, it doesn't remain so. But anyway, yeah, let's dive in. So, I've just got my list written out on my phone here. Coming in at number 10 of my favourite fantasy standalone books of all time is House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. This is a book that is actually more kind of horror fantasy. We follow 3 young women who, when they were children, disappeared for about a year. No one knows what happened to them. They just disappeared. I think they were in Scotland, but they lived in the UK. They lived in England, but they were in Scotland at the time when they disappeared. They were on holiday or something, and the parents had to go back home, and they had to do so without their children. The girls were very young. They were I think they were under 6. Or possibly, yes, I think they were under 6. There was a 6-year-old, 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old or something like that. Yeah, they disappeared. They were never found. No trace of them was ever found. No one figured out what was going on. Then they turned back up again a year later, but they were very different. The story picks up when they are in their late teens. So I think the eldest one, they're late teens and early 20s. I think the eldest one is like 20 or something like that, and then 18 and 16. And the eldest one disappears again, and the younger 2 go searching for her, and then we are following particularly the younger sister as she is kind of revisiting what happened to her when she was a child, because she never knew either. They never knew. They never were able to explain what happened to them, and so she's revisiting what happened to her and trying to figure out what happened to her. And yeah, it's a fantastic book. I really, really enjoyed it. The atmosphere is very kind of creepy and just really well written and really, really well devised. So highly recommend all of these books because they are my top 10 favourite fantasy standalones of all time. So number 10, like I said, is House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. Moving on to number 9, and that book is Ink Blood Sister Scribe by Emma Tors. So this is another kind of fantasy that exists in our world, and it is mixed, a genre blend with dark academia. We follow a few different characters. Mainly we follow 2 young women, so they're probably in their 20s, I would say, and they're sisters. One has taken on a job in Antarctica. The other one is in charge of keeping these magic books kind of almost under control, like magic kind of grimoires. And then the eldest has left and gone and taken this job in Antarctica, and she's done that because Antarctica is so far away from her family, and she's trying to get away from the family calling, as it were. It is following these sisters as some things start to happen to do with the magic, and they are trying to figure out exactly what is going on. And then we also have another character who is somewhat embroiled in the situation for a different reason, and they end up uniting and trying to figure out what's going on. And yeah, I didn't describe that very well, partly because it's actually been quite a while since I read it. I think I'm probably about due for a reread, and also because I feel like it's one of those books that is kind of better off the less you say the better, if that makes sense. But anyway, yes, number 9 favorite fantasy standalone book is Inkblood Sister Scribe by Emma Tors. Number 8 is The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow. So this is a kind of portal fantasy. We follow January, the adoptive daughter of this kind of, I guess, art collector, art curator, or like classic ancient antiquity collector. I don't know that she's aware that he's traveling through portals for quite a bit of her life, but then I think he disappears. Another book I am in need of a reread of. But I think he disappears, and she kind of goes hunting for him and then stumbles across these portals into other worlds and is kind of, yeah, then trying to figure out what exactly is going on and what exactly this person who she considers an adoptive father has been doing and what he's been hiding from her. Yeah, it's just really, really well written. It is the first of Alex E. Harrow's books that I ever read. I think it was her first published novel. Not 100% sure about that, but I really, really enjoyed it. Yeah, so it is definitely a favourite standalone fantasy of mine. Coming in at number 7, we have Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. So this is the most recent release, I think, of V.E. Schwab's books. It is a vampire story, and it is one of those books where we travel backwards and forwards through different timelines. So we're following 3 different women in different timelines, and we are following their lives and also some story about vampirism. It is about love and lust and manipulation and vengeance and obsession, and yeah, it is really well written. I really enjoy V. Schwab's writing style. I thought that it was really atmospheric and really well done, and yeah, absolutely loved it. Like I said, it is my number 7th favourite standalone fantasy currently. Coming in at number 6 is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. So this is a story about a circus, but this is a night circus, so it only appears at night. It's a kind of magical circus. It appears at night. You don't see it travel in, it's just there in a field, and then it disappears again the next day. And we follow a variety of different characters who run the night circus, but in particular we follow these 2 magicians who have a ongoing rivalry throughout generations, and it is about them setting up the night circus and also setting up a couple of different people to kind of be their weapons which they use against each other in this ongoing competition. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Again, very, very atmospheric, really well written, really fun way of writing. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was whimsical, and yeah, thoroughly enjoyed, highly recommend, as I said, as I do all of these books. Okay, we are at the 5th book already, which kind of surprises me, but anyway, apparently I don't have as much to say today as I sometimes do. But anyway, coming in the middle spot, in the 5th place in my top 10 fantasy standalones, is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. So if you know me and my channel and my reading tastes, you are probably not at all surprised to see The Hobbit on this list. You may be a little bit surprised that it is at number 5, but I felt like there were some others that deserved to be slightly higher up on this list than The Hobbit, but I could not make a list of this nature without The Hobbit featuring on it. You could argue that this is a prequel or the first book in the Lord of the Rings cycle, even though it definitely is a prequel, definitely is a story that comes before the Lord of the Rings. I think you can read it as a standalone book. The Lord of the Rings comes after it. There is an inciting incident in The Hobbit that leads to the Lord of the Rings, but it's definitely can be read and I think was intended as a standalone book. I feel like a lot of people consider The Hobbit to be cozy fantasy. So we follow the Hobbit being Bilbo Baggins. He's a very respectable hobbit who does not go on any kind of adventures. He stays at home and looks after Bag End, and he basically lives as a landed member of the landed gentry, although that's not how it's phrased. And yeah, he is a very respectable hobbit who doesn't go on adventures, and then one day Gandalf the Grey, a wizard, comes knocking on his door and basically tells him he's going to be part of this adventure, which Bilbo boo-hoos, dismisses, whatever, says no thanks Gandalf. But unbeknownst to him, Gandalf makes a mark on his door, and then one day, randomly, seemingly out of the blue, a bunch of dwarves start appearing on his doorstep, and Bilbo, being an excellent hobbit and an excellent host, keeps offering them all this food, and then Gandalf at last also arrives, and basically he has told the dwarves that Bilbo is going to be a member of their party as they go on this adventure, as they go on this quest to liberate the Misty Mountain, which was the home of these dwarves. They've been kicked out because a dragon has taken up residence, and they are going to go and try and take the mountain back from the dragon, and Bilbo is going to be their burglar, who is going to help them in this quest. Bilbo, of course, is completely against it, but despite his protestations and better judgment, he goes on the quest, and yeah, it's about Bilbo's adventures with the dwarves. I consider it to be a bit more of an adventure story, but I can definitely see how it would be considered cozy fantasy because it has all of the hallmarks of a cozy fantasy. Hobbits being very interested in food and the comforts of home. So Bilbo is kind of a very cozy fantasy figure. But he gets embroiled in this adventure, and they go on this adventure, and they have all sorts of different adventures along the way. Absolutely love J.R. Tolkien's way of writing. I love his descriptions of characters and place. The world building in all of his books are phenomenal, and yeah, it definitely belonged in my top 10 books, fantasy standalone books of all time. Now we're at number 4, and my 4th favourite standalone fantasy is The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. Yes, I do have 2 Alex E. Harrow books on this list. I absolutely love her writing style, as I mentioned. I think that she has a really fantastic way of putting words together, really great way of creating atmosphere, of world building. She has great characters, and just generally her writing style, her characterization, all of those things really, really appeals to me. This is my favorite book of hers. I have read almost all of the books that she has written. So far, this is my favorite one. Thoroughly enjoyed this one. So this is about 3 women in Salem in the US. It's kind of a alternative history of Salem, of the witch trials of Salem, only these 3 women are actually witches, unlike obviously what happened in Salem where they weren't actually witches. They are legitimately witches, and it is about female empowerment. There's an element of discussion about what's the word I'm looking for? Suffragette or suffragette? Is that the suffragettes? And yeah, it's about feminism. It's about female empowerment through the lens of witches and witchcraft. And I thought it was absolutely fantastic, really well written, and yeah, absolutely thoroughly enjoyed. Okay, we've made it to number 3. We are in the top 3 fantasy standalone books of all time. And I actually, before I started filming this video, rearranged my top 3, and now that I'm looking at it again, I may have to rearrange it again, because essentially these 3 books kind of are on par with each other in terms of how much I like them. But I think I am going to put in at number 3 Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. Now, I realise that Neil Gaiman is not an author who has done some terrible things, as it transpires. I had resolved not to talk about them anymore. However, I can't deny the fact that I love Good Omens. It is one of my favourite books of all time. It's definitely a favourite fantasy standalones of all time, and I just have to remember that it was written by Terry Pratchett as well, who is an amazing person and who was an amazing person, and I really hope did not know about Neil. So I try to pretend that it was only written by Terry Pratchett, because I can't deny that I love the book. And yeah, I'm not going to get into a discussion about my thoughts on separating art from the artist, because that's not what this video is. I don't know whether I am the right person to talk about it anyway, but let me know in the comments below if you'd be interested in my thoughts, and I may consider doing a video of that nature. But the purpose of this video is to tell you about my top 10 favourite fantasy standalones of all time, and Good Omens has to be in this list because I think it's fantastic. It's a little bit more of a paranormal kind of fantasy, but I would definitely say that it falls within the fantasy genre. So this is a book that takes place on our planet, in our Earth, if that makes sense, and it is about the apocalypse, essentially. So we follow a few different characters. In the TV show that was based on the book, we mostly follow the angel and the demon, who are definitely part of the cast of characters in the book, but in the book we follow a variety of different characters a bit more equally, and it is following these characters as we work towards the end of the world. And it's fantastic. It's funny, it is silly, it is satirical. That's what I'm looking for. It's satirical, it's clever. I love the writing style. I love these 2 authors writing together. I think it brings out the best in both of their writing styles, and yeah, think it's really funny, think it's really fantastic, and I highly recommend it. If any of those things sound appealing to you, I would definitely check out this book, despite the now unsavory connotations, but it's definitely a book worth reading. I think it's fantastic. Like I said, it's hilarious, and yeah, just a really, really fun, really good read. Which means that number 2 in my top 10 favourite fantasy standalones of all time is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by B.E. Schwab. Yes, this is my second Schwab book in my top fantasy standalone books of all time. This is what happens when a genre tends not to have standalones in it. We are stuck with 2 books from the same author in a list, if that makes sense. But that's okay, because, you know, it's my list. Anyway, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is my second favourite fantasy standalone of all time. It is about a woman who I think is in her kind of late 20s, or maybe even early 20s, I'm not sure. Hello. Sorry if the angle has changed. My memory card ran out of space, so I had to delete some things. But yes, here I am back to continue talking about Babel. So, Babel is sort of alternative world, alternative history, and we follow this young man called Robin. Robin is from India, I believe, and he has been brought over from India by this professor at Oxford University. He was saved from an epidemic. He's brought up by this professor and educated extremely well, and he ends up going to Oxford University. Now, in this world, there is magic. The magic is the manipulation of this substance called silver, which can be manipulated by the use of language and words. So it is the combination of linguistics to manipulate this substance called silver in order to create magic and affect the world. He is sort of entered into this program, and he is one of 4 young students who are from kind of lower socioeconomic parts of the world, and they were brought over as young people to the UK and kind of to be mined for their ability with silver and language. I'm not doing a great job of explaining what it's about, but it is... Sorry, that's the cat rubbing her face on my microphone. So it is a discussion about colonialism and about racism within academia and colonialism within academia, about oppression and about manipulation, about the use of and slavery, the use of other people and their belief of, you know, the Western right to control the world and control resources, and that includes people. And yeah, it was fantastic, absolutely fantastically written, absolutely just amazing. Really, I feel, really hit those points really, really well, and it was just really well done. Really engaging story, even within all of the different things that it's looking at. The story itself was really engaging, and yeah, I just absolutely loved Babel. I thought it was absolutely amazing. Highly recommend, and it is my favourite standalone fantasy book of all time. So that's the video. Those are my top 10 favourite fantasy standalone books of all time, from number 10 through to number 1, as I said. My favourite so far in my reading being Babel. But yeah, so that's everything from me today. Let me know in the comments below if you have any thoughts about any of the books that I've discussed here today. Let me know if you've read any of them, what you thought of them, what your favourite fantasy standalone is, if you have such a thing. Let me know all of that in the comments below. If you would like to leave me a comment but you don't know what, then leave me cat emoji, because I have this cat interrupting today, but she's very sweet, so we don't mind. But yeah, that's everything from me today. So thank you so much for joining me. I really, really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would absolutely love it if you would subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. And yeah, like I said, thank you so much for joining me today. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.